Hi, my name is Karen Slusher, and this is my introduction for the utilization of technology. I teach at Eagle Crest High School, which is in the Cherry Creek School District, which is on the eastern side of Denver, Colorado. We have 3,100 students at our school this year, and we are definitely an economically and racially diverse student population. As far as the impact and implications of technology, I really think that it's something that we have to accept as part of current society. It's something that we have to use in the classrooms and find ways to implement because it's going to help train students for future careers. I think if I'm not paying attention to technology, I'm not helping my students for what their future is going to be. I think this also means that as an educational leader, I have to be aware of the trainings that teachers are going to need and the support systems that they'll need to be able to implement some of the newer technology. I also think it's really important to pay attention to the usefulness of young teachers because they're coming out of schools having used some of these or with ideas on how to implement technology into the classroom that we might not necessarily have as veteran teachers. As our schools and kind of the state assessments and national assessments switch to being online, I think it's also important for us as teachers to understand how to help students be successful with online assessments. So finding out ways to kind of make that process a little bit easier for different learning styles. And then I also think it's important for the implications with technology is that we learn how to track the progress of our students and that the students also learn how to track their progress in terms of different ways to follow them through the school system. My current use is pretty strong, I think, and I think a lot of that's just because I teach classes that make use of technology every single day. In my journalism classroom, we use design software, so it's all Adobe software, and the kids are getting access to that, and they'll have the opportunity to test for Adobe certifications in the spring. We also use web building programs, so they'll learn things like WordPress. We also have DSLR cameras that they'll have access to and learn how to use. And then we also make use of current apps that they have on their devices or can download onto their devices. So for instance, one of the big apps that we're currently using is called Otter, which helps them record interviews, both sound and text. In my yearbook classroom, we also do a lot with Adobe as well. So the kids have access to Adobe both in school and at home through the software that Justin's partnered with them for. We have group communication, so we're using a lot of different ways to make sure that we're staying in communication with one another, that they're learning to kind of be responsible with their obligations and working together with one another. And then we use Google for staff management and to track the progress of their work and the completion of the book. My proposal would really center around these 5 components. I think it's really important to educate. I think you have to know what's out there. You have to be willing to kind of look and see and to learn about what's out there. And I think you have to experiment with the technology. So sometimes it's potentially asking for trials. Sometimes it's asking for a video tutorial. But I think you have to play around with the technology before you know whether or not it's something that you want to use. And then I think it's important to also ask people for help. I think it's important to ask the students what they're using and what they'd like to have in the classroom. And I think it's important to ask other people what they're using and to see how that can maybe be used within your classes. And then the next step would be to implement, finding out what's out there and being able to implement those tools and seeing kind of what it's like, and then analyzing whether or not those tools are actually working. So not just implementing it and kind of walking away, or implementing it and just using it, whether or not it's actually making a difference in their educational experience. I think it's important to analyze the actual outcome of the implementation and then kind of circle back to the educate step and start again to see what else might be of use. The funding at my school is actually pretty good. We're in a very supportive district. My lab is on a 5-year cycle for updates, so we are able to get new technology pretty readily. We also have pretty solid student access to technology, so most of my students have a smartphone, and we're able to use those within the classroom. I also am working on my CTE certification, so I'll be able to access Perkins funding once I have that to help kind of keep my classroom up to date. And then my students, at least in yearbook, are also fundraising. So they're selling ads in order for us to have access to other funds to keep our technology up to date. And that is my use of technology.